Why was one of the world's most respected leaders once labelled a terrorist? Nelson Mandela was on the US's terrorism watch list until 2008, just a few days before his 90th birthday and 14 years after he became president. But why was he even on this list? Mandela was born in 1918 in South Africa, a country that had experienced colonisation since the 17th century and where the native black population was experiencing horrific racial oppression and segregation. Mandela studied law and he quickly became involved in movements that opposed racial discrimination, one of which was the African National Congress, which is a party that opposed the white minority rule in South Africa, which he joined in 1943. Now, the racial segregation in South Africa became known as apartheid, and it was formalised in 1948 as an institutionalised system of segregation. In this period, Mandela undertook peaceful methods of protest against apartheid. For example, in 1952, he took part in the Defiance Campaign, which was a series of civil disobedience acts that intended to violate apartheid laws, such as entering white-only spaces. For these acts of protest, Mandela was repeatedly arrested. But when the African National Congress adopted the Freedom Charter, which laid down a vision for a democratic South Africa, Nelson Mandela, alongside 155 others, were arrested and tried for treason because the government claimed the Freedom Charter was a communist conspiracy against the government. Mandela was found not guilty, but he secretly joined the South African Communist Party, which was banned by the government. Here he moved from peaceful methods to non-peaceful methods as he found that non-violence was just not working anymore. This belief was confirmed by the 1960 Sharpeville massacre, in which police killed around 91 unarmed protesters. Alongside his membership of the Communist Party, he also helped to create the paramilitary wing of the African National Congress in 1961 that carried out acts of sabotage against the government, for example striking government facilities and key infrastructure like power grids, and also sending recruits to get guerrilla warfare training. Mandela, alongside the African National Congress, were then prescribed as terrorists by the government and by other foreign governments like the US, who put him on a terrorist watch list and banned him from entering the country. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher also condemned the African National Congress as a terrorist organisation. Now, it was these acts of sabotage against the government that led to his sentencing to life imprisonment on Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela would end up spending 27 years of his life. However, during these 27 years, the support for Nelson Mandela and his cause only grew, so much so that in 1990, President de Klerk had to release him from prison due to growing domestic unrest and international pressure. During this time, Mandela negotiated with the National Party to end apartheid, for which he and President de Klerk received a Nobel Prize for Peace in 1993. And it was in April 1994 that South Africa had its first ever free general elections, where South Africans, regardless of their race, could vote, and they voted for Nelson Mandela to become the first black president of South Africa. He remained president for the next 5 years, during which time he led the peaceful transition to democracy, and he established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which investigated the human rights abuses happening under apartheid as a method of national healing. But in the US, he remained on the terrorism watch list until 2008, just a few days before his 90th birthday. Now, Nelson Mandela is remembered as one of the most well-respected world leaders who not only fought for the end of apartheid, but also against racial injustices and poverty everywhere in the world. So who gets to decide whether someone is a terrorist or a freedom fighter?